everybody, it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Master 88. Welcome back to another Orichalcos Challenge deck profile. Tonight's Orichalcos Challenge build is going to be just a little bit different. And about a week or two ago, you guys saw my low power model, which that model's has a purpose, is to test the waters of the meta and see how it does against actual decks. This Orichalcos deck is a bit different. Not by much, but a little bit. You'll see why very shortly. This one is the high-powered model. This is pretty much reminiscent of many variants of different Orichalcos decks I've used over the years. Some stuff you'll recognize from the low-power models. Some stuff you'll recognize from mainly 2013 and 2014, and so on and so forth. So, without further ado, what do you all say we get started? So, first up, let me just put all this stuff in reverse order. This way, we can pretty much deal with this. Okay. Alright, so first things first, we have Orichalcos Necromancer. Now, this Orichalcos monster was originally designed by a friend of mine. His name is, I can't remember his name actually, but, his name is Jason though, so shout out to Jason. I was trying to remember his YouTube name, but it was so long ago. My apologies. But anyway, this is the monster he designed a long time ago. Basically, it's your typical level 4 spellcaster, 1600 attack, 1400 defense, and it's a light attribute as well. One of the first Orichalcos light attribute monsters. Check that out. When this monster is normal summoned, you can shuffle one Orichalcos card from your graveyard into your deck to draw a card. Essentially, it's a more watered-down version of Shaman's shuffling ability. That's pretty much all he is. One Orichalcos Knight. Basically, you've seen him in pretty much my past Orichalcos challenges. But basically, to summarize, if this card destroys an opponent's monster at battle and sends it into the graveyard, I can pay 500 to add an Orichalcos card from my graveyard to my hand. Basically, more searching, that's all he does. Orichalcos Shaman. Now, this is one of the two headliners of my deck. He's been in my Orichalcos challenge since 2012. Yeah, that's how old this card is. I originally found this guy on Google many years ago. Somebody else made him, but his original effects weren't even that good. They actually sucked. Basically, I pretty much redid his effects, made him a little better. Basically, he has a few abilities. If he's normal summoned, I could special summon a level 4 lower Orichalcos monster from my hand or deck. I can shuffle up to 3 cards with different different names in my graveyard, from my graveyard into my deck, then draw 2 cards. I can change his level from 1 to 8. I can only control 1 Orichalcos Shaman on the field, and I can only use each of his effects once per turn and only once that turn. So all his effects have a hard once per turn on it. Divine Serpent, no introduction. You've seen the low-powered model. There you go. Orichalcos Priestess. Now, this Orichalcos monster is relatively new. She's only been in a handful of my Orichalcos challenge deck profiles, though she was not in the deck originally. She was one of the last monsters that I created, maybe around 2017, 2018. Can't remember the date. I would have to look back at my past deck profiles. But basically, she's a light level 4, 1500 attack, 1500 defense, and what she does is, during each of my standby phases, I gain 500 life points for each other Orichalcos monster I control except for herself. Sorry, you can't gain life points off of her. And once per turn, and only once that turn, I can pay 1,000 to special summon a level 4 lower Orichalcos monster from my graveyard. However, its effects are negated, and I can only control 1 Orichalcos Priestess on the field. So, basically, she's a resurrector of the deck. Here's Dragonus Orichalcos making his second appearance. He is in the high-powered build, just like in the low-power build. So if you want to know what he does, you can check out the low-powered build. Orichalco Sorcerer. Now, this little guy didn't come around until around 2013. He is pretty much Orichalco Shaman's right-hand man. They pretty much go together. They're what I like to call the dynamic duo of the Orichalcos, essentially. They're pretty much brothers. So basically what he does is, basically, if he is special summoned by the effect of a level 4 lower Orichalcos monster, I can special summon a level 4 lower Orichalcos monster from my hand or deck. I can target one fusion, synchro, or Xyz monster in my graveyard, return it to the extra deck. I can change this card's level from 1 to 8, just like with Shaman, and if this card is used for a fusion, synchro, or Xyz summon, I can add an Orichalcos card from my deck or graveyard to my hand. I can only control one sorcerer on my field, and I can only use each of his effects once per turn and only once that turn. Very similar to how Shaman's restrictions are. Lord of the Orichalcos Army. No introduction. He's in the low power model. Here's my Kutoras. My Shunoros. My Dexia and my Restauros. Divine Serpent's already been passed. Next up, one Dark Orichalcos Knight. Now, this guy's a little interesting. He has a few additions to him, unlike his brother, Orichalcos Knight. And here's what he does. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can pay 500... Well, it doesn't say you can, but you have to pay 500. It's a mandatory cost. Banish that monster. During the end phase of the turn I activate this effect, I can shuffle an Orichalcos card from my graveyard into my deck to draw one card. Very similar to Necromancer. One Gygus. Orichalcos Fairy. Now, this is pretty much the only synchro monster. This is the only tuner monster I have in my deck. She's not a synchro monster, though I should have made her one a long time ago, but I chose not to. But basically what she does is, if she is used for a dark attributed synchro summon of a Orichalcos monster, I pretty much gain 2,000 life points. But she has a bit of effects onto it. I made a little, not an error. I didn't make an error on her effects. I just read it wrong. If this card is sent to the graveyard for the single summon of a dark attributed monster, gain 2,000 life points. And if I would take effect damage, I can discard this card to make my opponent take the effect damage instead. Then I gain life points equal to the effect damage my opponent took. So basically, I can just redirect effect damage, then I gain life points in the process. One Malevolence, one Magus. There's my other Kutora. One Doom Beetle, Orichalcos Shield. Now, this is a very special card here. Now, I am not its original owner. I found this on Yugioh a long time ago. Basically, what he does is, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, I can special summon this card. From my hand, and if I do, I end the battle phase. If there is a face-up Seal of Orichalcos, this card must be targeted for an attack before other monsters. That's it. Here's Darkness Seed once again. Orichalcos Searcher. Now, yes, this is Jinzo, but he's an Orichalcos monster now, and what he does is, if he is sent to my graveyard, I can add 2 Orichalcos cards from my deck to my hand. Level Machine. Now, Level Machine is pretty much one of my oldest Orchias. I haven't eroded it in years. Basically, it's a continuous spell card that does this. Once per turn, I can target one monster I control, and then declare a level from 1 to 12. The targeted monster becomes that level until it leaves the field. So, this gives my Orichalcos deck a bit more level modulating. One Water of Life allows me to resurrect a monster in attack position. One Grave Arm. I destroy a monster, and as long as that monster is in the graveyard, it cannot be special summoned. One copy of Back in the Darkness. I send any monster to the graveyard, and this does not target. Orichalcos Destroyer. This thing is the most broken back removal in my entire deck, and this is the only back removal I have in this deck. I pay 1,000 life points to nuke every card on my opponent's field. It is very broken. 2 Orichalcos transfer draws. Basically what this does, I shuffle 1 Orichalcos, Mirror Knight Calling, or Divine Serpent card in my hand back into my deck, then I draw 2 cards. 1 Orichalcos Gateway. This is in the low power build, so I don't need to go over it. 2 Chosen Destinies, and basically all the layers of the Orichalcos. You guys have seen these before. I don't need to go any introductions. Now we get into the interesting stuff, the traps. Now these traps are basically what I used back around like maybe late 2012 to around maybe 2015 or so. What we got here is Orichalcos Detonation Seal. Now this thing, it allows me to basically let me read this. I destroy the Seal of Orichalcos, ignoring its effects, but this also destroys all the monsters that were affected by it. And I inflict 300 damage to both players' life points for every monster that was destroyed by this effect. So essentially, it's like a Chaos Emperor Dragon effect, but it's Orichalcos essentially. But this is pretty much the way that I can save myself from pretty much losing a soul off my soul list. Next up, Orichalcos Swords of Concealing. Now this thing is a bit broke, and here's why. When this card is activated, I flip all monsters my opponent controls into face-down defense position. These positions cannot be changed for as long as this card remains face-up on the field. During my main phase, I can choose to destroy this card. So yeah, this thing is pretty much Swords of Concealing Light, but better. Next up, Brow Transplant. I can banish any card on the field, and this does not target. Very good when you're trying to get around Divine Serpent. Orichalcos Fissia. I pretty much tribute an Orichalcos monster I control to send two cards my opponent controls to the graveyard. And this does not target either. This does not target. And then Rebirth Tablet. This is a card from the anime. This is pretty much I think it's the only anime card I have in here. I pretty much activate only if a monster I control is destroyed by battle. I special summon a monster from my graveyard, any monster I want. So that's like so Water of Life and this are the only 2 resurrection cards I have in the deck. So that is pretty much the high power model. Now we get to the extra deck. So first off we have Leviathan, Leviair, and Nightmare Shark. I chose these 3 specifically for individual uses. Nightmare Shark can pretty much attack the opponent directly, Leviair can get back my banished monsters, and Leviathan is just a general beat stick. That's just it. Next up, number 200, Orichalcos Soul Eater. Now this is pretty much my ace monster of this deck. Basically, it takes 2 level 5s to make this thing. 2 level 5 Orichalcos monsters. But remember, my Shaman and my Sorcerer can modulate the levels, so I can make them level 5 very easily. So basically what he does is, once per turn, I can detach a material from this card to target 1 monster my opponent controls, and attach that target to this card as material. This card gains 200 attack for each material attached to it. If this card would be destroyed, I can detach 1 material from this card instead. So yeah, he can get a little big, but he's really good at stealing my opponent's monsters, which is what he's meant for. Next up, 3 copies of this. Orichalcos Gem Dragon. Now, this thing is pretty much my version of the pre-errata Orichalcos Dragon. The original Orichalcos Dragon that Orichalcos users were using for years. Basically, what his name now is Orichalcos Gem Dragon. But in his effect, I specifically put in this that this card's name is also always treated as Orichalcos Dragon. This way, he can be compatible with his other family members, which are higher ranks. Now, what he does is I can detach a material from this card to add an Orichalcos card from my deck or graveyard to my hand. And I can also detach a material to banish one card on the field, and this is not target. And I can only use each of these effects once per turn, and only once that turn, and I can only control one Orichalcos Gem Dragon. So, he's basically the big monster of my deck. The only difference between him and Orichalcos Dragon, though, is he has 2,500 attack and 3,000 defense. The original Orichalcos Dragon had 3,000 attack and 2,500 defense. But under the Seal of Orichalcos, this thing will go up to 3,000, so he'll have 3,000 attack and defense. So, good luck getting around that. Orichalcos Warlock. Now, this monster was also made by my friend Jason, but I decided to redo it a little bit and just change its name a little bit so it matches a little more with the Orichalcos. Its name used to be Warlock of Orichalcos, though I decided to just change its name a little bit. So basically what he does is he requires two level 4 Orichalcos spellcaster monsters, and once per turn, I can detach a material to activate one of these effects. I can either blow up a card on the field, that does not target, and I can banish one random card from my opponent's hand. So I either destroy or I rip, one or the other. Lance, the champion of Orichalcos. Now this is a very old Orichalcos monster. I haven't used him in years. He was once part of one of the last variants of my Neo Orichalcos deck before I discontinued the project for many, many years. Basically what he does is he requires 2 level 10 Orichalcos monsters. And basically, once per turn, I can detach a material from him to activate one of these effects. I can either add a level 4 or lower Orichalcos monster from my deck to my hand. I can destroy a face-up monster my opponent controls, but however, he cannot attack on the turn he uses this, or I can have him attack all face-up monsters my opponent controls. So, yeah, he can just get every single one of them. Next up, we have Leo. He's just Leo. I don't need to go into it. Black Rose Chaos Dragon. Now, this card was made by my friend Winter Moon. This is basically what would happen if Black Rose Dragon went evil, essentially. So, what she does is basically, she's level 7, 2,400 attack, 1,800 defense. She's a generic synchro monster. Any tuner or non-tuner can make it. If this card is synchro summoned, I can banish all cards on the field. Once per turn, I can banish one plant monster from my graveyard, then target one defense position monster my opponent controls. Change that target to a face-up attack position. And if I do, I inflict damage to my opponent equal to its current attack points. So essentially, say my opponent is a monster in defense position, I can pretty much banish my Darkness Seed that's in my graveyard, which is the only plant that I have in this deck, target my opponent's defense position, put it to attack position, and boom, the deed is done. Next up, Dark Nebula Dragon, also made by my friend Winter Moon. This is pretty much the evil counterpart to Stardust Dragon. Now, what this does is basically same stats as Stardust, but he's Dark Attribute. Generic tuner and non-tuner, by the way. During every player's turn, if a monster my opponent controls activates its effect, I can tribute this face-up card to negate the activation if I do destroy it. During the end phase, if this effect was used this turn and was not negated, I can special summon this card from my graveyard. So it's pretty much Stardust Dragon, but this thing is a monster effect negator now, which is really good. Next up, Primeval Armory Dragon. Now, this monster I made in my Orichalcos deck many years ago. This is the evil counterpart to Power Tool Dragon. Now, what this thing does is it is Dark, level 7, 2300 attack, 2500 defense. Generic tuner and non-tuner once again. Once per turn, you could choose 3 Orichalcos cards from your deck. Then your opponent randomly picks one of them to add to your hand, and you shuffle the rest back into your deck. Once per turn, you can target one other face-up card you control. That target cannot be targeted by other card effects until my opponent's next end phase. So it pretty much gives my monsters some protection, essentially. Next up, Orichalcos King. The other headliner to my Orichalcos deck. He's been part of my Orichalcos decks he's been pretty much a part of many variations of my deck over the years. I created this card back around, I think, 2013, 2014, one or the other. But basically what he does is he's pretty much my headline synchro. Dark, level 8, 3000 attack, 2500 defense. Requires an Orichalcos tuner and a non-tuner. Once per turn, you can banish one card your opponent controls. Cannot attack the turn this effect is activated. If this card destroys an opponent's monster, I banish it instead. If this card is destroyed, I gain 1000 life points. It's very simple. Very simple. It just runs over everything, essentially. And then the final monster, the newest addition to the Orichalcos family, Orichalcos Diabolos. Now, this thing is a monster of monsters. It is pretty much the newest kid on the block when it comes to Orichalcos boss monsters in terms of synchro monsters. I found this thing just recently on a dueling book, and I thought, you know what? What if I made my own version of this? So, basically, that's what I did. So basically, what he does is he's dark 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's a dark level 10, 3100 attack, 2700 defense. 1 Orichalcos tuner plus 1 non-tuner Orichalcos monster. If your opponent activates a monster effect while you control an Orichalcos field spell, quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. If your opponent activates a spell or trap, and while you control 2 or more banished Orichalcos field spells, different names, quick effect, you can negate the activation if you destroy it. You can only use each effect of Orichalcos Diabolos once per turn, and once that turn, you can only control 1 Orichalcos Diabolos. So basically, he has the same effects as when I found him originally on Dueling Book. It's just I redid the words a little bit, made his text a little cleaner, made it better. But other than that, that is pretty much the Orichalcos Challenge's high power model. Within maybe a week or two, I will show you guys, in my honest opinion, the strongest and most powerfulest Orichalcos deck to debut thus far on my channel. Now, there's a story behind this, so I'll explain. Many years ago, like around 2012, like around 2012, 2013, me and Florentine Yugioh, Callan Florentine, or Florentine Yugioh as he's known on YouTube, basically, we pretty much co-designed together a Orichalcos series of Orichalcos monsters that pretty much only had a little bit of appearances on YouTube. They were pretty much revered by a good chunk of people as the strongest Orichalcos cards to date. This series has not seen, this series has not seen, that much play in, almost a decade. It's been that long. For big reasons why, this special series of Orichalcos cards was pretty much banned. is because the deck was way too powerful. And basically, thus created what was known as the Neo Orichalcos. And what the Neo Orichalcos was is basically originally, it was pretty much a joke between me and Callum Florentine. Like, basically, what would happen if we took the normal Orichalcos monsters that you all know and love and just basically gave them badass artwork and basically just made their effects super mega ultra broken. Like, basically made them tier 0 broken. And essentially that's what happened. And basically, I took it upon myself to pretty much make this deck a reality. And basically, around 2013, I released my first prototype build of the Neo Orichalcos deck. And at first, it was a big success. It was not to the point of it being overpowered at first. It was significantly stronger than my normal Orichalcos build back in 2013. But the thing is, it wouldn't gain a lot of power until 1 year later. But essentially, Clown Florentine made his version of the Neo Orichalcos deck, which I will link in the description below so you guys could see for yourselves basically what it was like to use this type of series. Now, I bet you are wondering, why did I ban the series? Well, like I said, around 2013, the deck got way too powerful. Basically, around that time, the deck's power was growing at a very fast rate, and it had enough power through the research and development that me and Callum Florentine were doing. It literally had enough power to destroy meta decks. And so basically, around late 2013, early 2014, we pretty much made a decision to disband the archetype. Well, it was an archetype, but at the same time, it was still related to the Orichalcos. Now, as of recently, I was talking to him, and essentially, I pretty much decided that I was going to revive this once powerful series of cards, but with the knowledge and with the knowledge and the research that I know now to balance them out. So, I am announcing, effective right now, that the Neo Orichalcos series is back. It's going to be having some tests on Dueling Book very soon. And eventually you all will be able to see how good this archetype is in this era, when the archetype is fully balanced and not as powerful as it used to be. I had to nerf the monsters just a little bit, but not by much. I didn't want to take away all their powers. Not all of them. One thing I can tell you about them is what makes the Neo Orichalcos so special is essentially each Neo Orichalcos monster cannot be targeted or be destroyed by the opponent's card effects. They all have Chaos Max protection built into them. Now, if you don't know what I mean by Chaos Max protection, look up the card Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon and you'll see what I'm talking about. That's pretty much the only additional effect they have to them. Other than that, basically, the remainder of their effects is basically just jacked up versions of their original effects from the normal Orichalcos challenge. But in about a week or two, I will unveil version 3 of the Neo Orichalcos deck profile. There's currently 2 versions on my channel, which I will link in the description bar below as well. There's version 1, and there's the final version. There was another version, but I accidentally deleted it, so we'll just call the final version, version 2. But this will be version 3 coming out very soon, and you guys will see why it's very special. And also, it will be known as the Nightmare Mode Orichalcos Challenge. Now, what do I mean by Nightmare Mode? Essentially, take Quake, for example. Nightmare Mode is the most bullshit mode you can ever play in Quake. It can be beaten if you have a lot of skill and a lot of courage. For me personally, I've never beaten Nightmare Mode, and I want to try it at some point. But no, basically take the concept of Nightmare Mode, for example. Basically, a very hard to beat video game. That's basically what the Neo Orichalcos Challenge version 3 is going to be. Basically, the Neo Orichalcos series, they're getting some adjustments to where basically they act like Nightmare Mode, essentially. I'm not going to reveal all their effects. You guys are just going to have to wait and see what they look like when they're released. I will also say that there will also be some special cards inside the Neo Orichalcos deck that I will be putting in there that you guys may be familiar with if you've watched a certain live-action Yu-Gi-Oh! Series called Revelations of the Seal of Orichalcos. I'm not going to say what cards they are, or pretty much what's going to be in there when it comes to cards from that show. You guys are gonna have to find out. But other than that, that is it for this Orichalcos Challenge deck profile. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and until we meet again for the Nightmare Mode Orichalcos Challenge, this is Yu-Gi-Oh! Master 88 saying, see you in Nightmare Mode.